All right, welcome to Entrepreneurs Visiting Victor. I'm your host, Victor Dadaj. I hope you're having an amazing day so far. And I have an awesome guest today. And she is a keynote speaker, a coach, a podcaster, a consultant, and she's also an author on building self-confidence. And she currently inspires women through her highly successful podcast called the Tao of Self-Confidence, where she interviews Asian women about their inner journey to self-confidence. So let's welcome Sheena Yap Chan. How you doing today, Sheena?
Hey, Victor. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here today. I'm doing well despite the cold weather, but other than that, I've been pretty good.
Awesome. Great to hear. It's wonderful to have you. So I'd just like to start off. Why don't you just share your story about how you share your journey as to how you got to where you are to being a speaker, consultant, and podcaster.
For sure. So, before I used to work a job for like 12 years in an office, and I always knew it wasn't for me. I don't know if you ever felt this way, Victor, or if you ever had a job, but you would just sit in your cubicle
Mm-hmm.
and you would think to yourself, like, I could not see myself working here until I was 60. And for me, I couldn't see it either. Right. And I just knew it wasn't for me. But because I was so afraid of letting it go, I just stuck through it. Right. I just said, I'm going to keep my job because this is stable. I get a steady paycheck. But it wasn't until my aunt's death that happened almost 10 years ago that I realized like life is so short and we just have to make the
Mm-hmm.
most of our life as much as we can. Right. And it didn't happen overnight, of course. Right. Like, there are a lot of things that happen along the way, but that was the turning point basically, or the beginning of me realizing that
Mm-hmm.
I really need to create my own path or just live life to my terms versus like doing what everyone tells you to do. And so maybe a couple of years after that, I decided to like sell my condo and like basically sell all my stuff. And like I decided to live in Hawaii for 2 summers, 2 winters, because winter here sucks in Toronto, because New York's not that far.
Right.
And I always knew I wanted to help women, especially Asian women, because growing up, I never had any kind of representation or any role
Mm-hmm.
models that I could look up to
Mm-hmm.
that were Asian. Up here in Canada, all I ever saw was white people on TV, on billboards, on magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought my cultural heritage wasn't enough, or I didn't feel beautiful enough being Asian. And so there was one time where I wanted to name myself Heather, have blonde hair and blue eyes, because that's what I thought being beautiful was.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I realized like I needed to find a platform where I can celebrate women's, especially Asian women, celebrate their
Mm-hmm.
stories, because there's phenomenal stories out there of Asian women being able to go out there and do their own thing. It's just nobody talks about it. And it's probably part of it is because of our upbringing, because we're just told to never
Mm-hmm.
brag, never make any noise, just stay in the
Mm-hmm.
background and do as you're told. And so that's when I started the podcast, which is right here, the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I interview Asian women about their journey to self-confidence. I've interviewed over 700 Asian women on this topic, which I'm super proud of. And out of this podcast is where everything else came out, like consulting and being an author and coaching and speaking. And last week, we recently released this book called Asian Women Who Boss Up. And this book is super huge because how many books do you see that highlight 16 Asian women on a cover of a
Mm-hmm.
book?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you?
Yeah. No, no, they're not that common at all. No, I agree.
Yeah, they're super rare. And if there is a book out there, nobody really talks about it or promotes it, right? And so for me, this is something really personal because finally there's a platform out there where women can read other women's stories, right? Especially Asian women, of how they're able to forge their own path, overcome obstacles and thrive, because that's what life is all about, where it's not always peaches and cream or strawberries and roses or rainbows. Sometimes life sucks and there's days where you just don't want to do anything, or you feel so defeated that you're not going to get yourself back up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we need stories like this one, so that we can realize if they could do it, so can I. And the feedback I've been getting is so amazing, right? I had one lady say she's going to read it with her daughters. I have moms telling me that this is the kind of mentality they want to instill in their daughters. I have husbands telling me that they want to thank me on behalf of their daughters, their wives, their sisters. So this is not just a book, right? This is more than a book. This is like a movement that we want to create. We really want to create a voice for Asian women and the Asian community, especially now with what's been going on in the US and Canada and Europe with the Asian targeted hate crimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's been happening because of the pandemic. Our elderly's been targeted a lot, which is very unfortunate because that's someone's grandmother and grandfather that could be targeted as well.
No, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful point you shared that. Now, number one, I'm familiar with a lot of this because I have a lot of Asian friends, so I know the culture, and I know a lot of people are not taught to speak up and voice their opinion. So I think this is great that you're encouraging a lot of Asian women to just share their views, share their desires, their dreams and their goals, and to be open with it. I think. And I have no doubt that you've interviewed over 700 of them. You're inspiring a lot of Asian women to work on their self-confidence, realize they have a lot to offer society, and that they could do great things. So it's great. And you're getting testimonies from a lot of mothers, daughters, sisters, husbands who are, their wives and their daughters are being inspired. Us. I think it's wonderful that you're doing that. And I'm sure they're going to get a lot out of your book. So that's really good. So Seven, how many years have you been doing the podcast now? It's probably must be several years now, right?
I started in September 2015. So when I first started, I started interviewing women from different backgrounds because at the time I just didn't think it was possible to just focus interviewing Asian women. But
Mm.
as I kept doing it, I realized like, this needs to be the platform for Asian women. And that's when I changed it to just specifically interview women from Asian descent. And a lot of people feel like they have to know what they're doing when they first start something. I didn't. I just said, I'm going to start with this and see it how it goes and kind of just course correct or figure things out along the way. And I think that's something we need to really learn because we're so afraid to just start imperfectly. But we can start imperfectly and just, course correct along the way because that's what being in business is. That's what being an entrepreneur is, being able to be okay with making mistakes, failing, and well, not failing. Failing is not really the word I'd like to use. Feedback. Get lots of feedback, right? Failure is feedback. So is, getting rejection. Rejection is feedback. And I think if we see these things as feedback versus like something negative, we'll keep moving forward. And I know it's not easy because like I've been through rejection and it's not fun. Like it sucks. There's days where you just want to eat your feelings, but the more you embrace it, the more you can keep moving forward.
No, and I totally agree with that, Sheena, because I learned an acronym for FAIL, which is for all I have learned. It's a learning process. You only really fail if you give up, but if you learn from it, get the feedback, make tweaks along the way, because no journey is going to be perfect. There are things you want to do, and you've been doing this 5 years. You've made changes along the way. You realize I want to do this a little bit different. I want to tweak that. Everyone has plans, but along the way, things change. And look, everyone's plans changed last year because of COVID. We all had things
Oh
we are going
yeah.
to do, and then that all got brushed aside. We had to make a lot of adjustments. So everyone has to make
Yeah.
adjustments, and you're gonna make mistakes along the way. But the only way you can not make mistakes is if you never try. But if you never try, you never get anything done. So you were brave, you were courageous, you took the leap, the jump, and you did it. And as it is, you've grown over these last 5 years, and I'm sure you probably have a lot of women reaching out to you saying, can I get on your podcast? Because before you were probably looking for people,
Oh
but
yeah.
now in recent years, you probably have people saying, "Oh man, I love this podcast. Can I be a guest?"
Yeah, it's not even just the podcast, it's now the book. They're like, "Are
Mm.
you gonna make a second one? How can we be an author on the second one?" And we're like, "Wow, we just came out with the first one. Let's focus on this first." But of course, I would love to have a second volume because I really want to create that voice, right? Because for me, representation is huge. And if you can't look up to someone that has the same features or have the same upbringing, like you won't be able to go out there and make that first move or take that first step. Especially, March is Women History Month, right?
Hmm.
I mean, what a great way to start celebrating it, right? Like just showcasing phenomenal women who went out there, even when they felt like they were alone or nobody was cheering for them, like they still went ahead and did it. So for anyone who's watching this, like just know you're not alone. There's a book right here that will help you get over that. And actually at the end of the month, we'll also have a virtual summit featuring all the authors on the book. So that's going to be fun. A lot of networking, a lot of, just having that support system, because I realize as women, one thing we really want is support, right? A lot of us feel like we're so alone in this journey, especially when your friends and family don't support you. Like you feel like you're the only one going through this. Truth is, everyone goes through this. I went through this. Victor, I'm sure you went through it. And it's just not just women, men go through it as well. But I know women feel it a lot more because as women, like we're very hard on ourselves, right? We're
Hmm.
super hard on ourselves. We overthink a lot. We have analysis paralysis. There's always a resistance for us. And I know, but I've been through that. I've been through that resistance, right? And I still go through it, but I work on it a lot faster and a lot harder because I realize if I don't take any action, nothing happens, right? Like, this, even the simple of asking questions, right? I always say, if you never ask, the answer is no. So if you ask, like, what if it's a yes, right? Like, where can that yes go? Or even if it's a no, it's okay. It's not the end of the world.
No, absolutely. You got to take the chance, and it's great that you're encouraging women just to go try more with your life. You just never know, and I know a lot of women are being inspired by your actions. So this summit is going on next month. For people to find out about what's
Oh,
the best, should they just reach out to you, or
yeah.
is there a link or a Facebook
Yeah,
group?
for sure. So they can check out SheenaYapChan.com. On the main page, there's a link there to register for free. It's happening from March 29th to the 31st. It'll be a 3-day conference. You get to see all of the authors, all 18 authors in the book. They'll all have speaking topics that, women can relate and learn for their own businesses, right? Because we really want to create that support, that sisterhood, or just having that girl talk, especially during this pandemic. A lot of women have been suffering from the pandemic more than men, right? That's just the truth based on the stats and the reports that you see out online. Especially like in December, they mentioned there was 100% job loss for women. And as I'm talking to women, especially on Clubhouse, they said, it's not because, some of it is layoffs, but some of it is because they're forced to be at home because they have kids who
Hmm.
are online learning, who aren't going to school, and there's no one else to take care of their kids. So as women, we carry a lot of burden, right? We carry a lot of responsibilities, and we want to
Hmm.
find a way where we can work from home and still be with our kids, or still be able to have that lifestyle, right? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of us have been working from home, and some of us might like that more than being stuck in traffic every day for like an hour, 2 hours, right? So yeah, super excited for that.
That's awesome. So yeah, and by the way, International Women's Day is also coming up on March 8th. So a great way to celebrate it with all the things you have going on next. So you have the book out, you have the summit coming on next month, and yeah, so it's that's just pretty impressive. So so the next thing is, and you do a lot of speaking as well and coaching, and so I guess a lot of that coaching consulting, I guess, arose from the work you were doing with the podcast and interviewing a lot of women. So I think so that's another thing I want to talk about. When you go out into the unknown and take those chances, you just never know when new opportunities can come out. Because I'm sure a lot of these opportunities you've come across these last 3 or 4 years have come because you were willing to take that chance, go into the unknown, and you didn't know how I was going to do it, but you just said, this is what I want to do. And I know good things are going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know if I press on and I just take that journey, great things will happen. And and I'm sure other opportunities will happen. And I'm sure you'll agree that if you didn't take this chance, you would not have been able to accomplish all these other things, being the consultant, writing the book, or doing the summit, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I know it's hard, right? Sometimes we feel like we're not enough. I've been there, even doing this podcast, like the first couple of years, or like in the beginning, or even later in the middle of it. Like, I just never thought I was good enough to do anything else. Like, I've interviewed women who are 8-figure earners, who've been on Forbes 30 under 30, who have like 2 million followers on Instagram. And I would start comparing myself to them, thinking, who am I to be with these women, right? Like, they're already doing amazing things. I mean, there's nothing left for me to do. But I want you to realize, like, there's always like, you always have a chance to go out there and create a positive impact, especially now where so many women are hurting and they just need, sometimes a shoulder to lean on, or just having that girl talk is super important. Like, sometimes I do Clubhouse chats where we just talk, right? It's just open, vulnerable conversations. And this is where you get to learn, like, what some of the women are feeling and how they're doing, like, how they're feeling. And I tell them, listen, you're not the only one who goes through this. A lot of people go through this. And just knowing that you're not the only person alone makes a huge difference. And some of the things I love talking about too is mental health, because mental health is huge, but nobody talks about it. It's still a very taboo subject in Asian community, because some of them feel like they don't think it's real. They try to avoid it, don't bring it up, or they do the total opposite, which is to like just put you in a mental institution because they just don't want to deal with it. But I want to be able to talk about it a lot more so we can normalize it and realize, you know what, you're okay if you're dealing with this, because we're all dealing with this, especially being stuck at home, not being able to go out anywhere, not being able to travel anywhere. Like it's gonna heighten, right? Your mental health issues will heighten, like especially when you live alone and you live in a small space, like that's gonna heighten your mental health issues. And I want you to realize like it's okay if you go through that, and there's tools and resources for you to seek that help, right? Don't be afraid to seek help, because that can help you towards your process of healing, or just being able to take care of yourself, right? I mean, sometimes I wish in school they talk more about self-care, because this is like real world things that happen. Like nobody ever taught me about self-care and self-love in school. It was just like math, science, geography, like those normal subjects. But we really need to learn to help kids learn about self-care and learning to just feel their feelings, so that way when they grow up they can understand this is all part of the process, and it'll help us in our own journeys and our own path. Because mental health is huge. Even having like working on your mindset is huge, right? Because you're not going to take action unless you don't believe in yourself or go out there and realize like you can do this.
No, absolutely. Your beliefs, your mindset, how you feel about yourself, your self confidence, those are all huge factors. And I'm on a lot of entrepreneurial shows on Clubhouse, and our groups always talk about those things. We always constantly talk about how you feel about yourself, and you have the mental health issues, depression. Some people gone through abuse at home, and all those things. And once they dealt with it and overcame it, they got some counseling or in these self-help groups. Once they were able to overcome that, their lives changed, and then they were able to accomplish great things. But you have all these things going on in your mind that are hindering you. It's incredible. They can stop you from going to the next level. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you have all these mental blocks, the mental depression, the anxiety, all that stuff going on, it's going to stop you. So it's good that you have these groups on Clubhouse, your discussion with other women and the beliefs in themselves. And I know there's and like I said, I've talked to a lot of women who go through the same thing you've been telling me about. It's very important that they're able to have a safe haven where they can discuss these things and have other people support them in their journey. Because, like you said, they need to know they're not alone. They have a lot of people that can help them on this journey, and they'll help each other get through this. And I think that's what's so great about your book. You have a lot of women who bossed up and accomplished a lot of great stuff and realize, hey, we can do this. And you're not alone no matter what's going on. And especially all the stuff, like you said, all the struggles they've had with COVID. And there's a lot of challenges, and they can be inspired even with these challenges, they can overcome it.
Yeah, for sure. And, belief is huge, right? Especially as women, we always feel like we're not enough, we're not worthy, we don't deserve a seat at the table. But I want to remind them that you are worthy, right? As women, we're so capable. We're more capable than you realize. It's because of how we perceive ourselves that stops us from taking action. I realize that women, lack confidence due to inaction, because they're too afraid to take that first step, right? Or just go out there and just maybe send an email to someone, or talk to a possible client, whatever it is. We all go through it, right? And I know as women, there's so many like gender biases that we go through, right? Especially when it comes to like self promotion, it's not proper to promote yourself online because it's not ladylike. But I always tell people, like, if you don't promote your service or your product, you're actually doing a disservice to society. Because what if your
Hmm.
product or service can change one person's life? Like if
Hmm.
this book changed one person's life, then I'm happy. Like I did my job, because that's all I want. I just want, because you never know where that one person can go. What if that one person's life you change could be the next Oprah or the next
Hmm.
Tony Robbins or whoever, right? Like
Hmm.
the sky's the limit, right? Like there's doesn't matter, the possibilities are endless, and it's amazing what you can do just by changing one person's life.
No, I think that's a really great point, because if you look at it that way, saying if I get a book out, if I get a show out, a video, a coaching program, whatever, if I get one of those things out and I can change someone's life, I should be focusing on that, not the fact like, I don't know, is it ladylike? Is it proper? If I can help change someone's life, then I should do it, because, like you said, it makes you feel good. And I'm sure over the years you've had a lot of women reach out to you saying, all those podcasts, all those shows, those things have really inspired me. I wasn't sure whether I should or not, but you inspire me, and now I'm doing all these great things in my life, all because of the guests you had. They shared such great stories, and I got inspired, and I realized I wasn't alone. There are dozens of other women doing this. So if you got to look at it that way. everyone has to promote themselves. The truth is, if you don't promote yourself, no one else really is. It has to start with yourself, and then eventually other people will. But you gotta, I like your point of view. You gotta focus on, can I change someone's life with this product? And if like you said, one book can help one person get inspired by that, you just make you feel happy. So I think that's a great message for all the women listening in today. If this thing can definitely help me inspire the women, change their lives, and make a big difference in their lives, then I'm happy. That's so I'm going to keep coming out with these products, keep consulting people, coaching people, because I believe I can make their lives better and just inspire them to a bigger dream.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think if people start seeing that more often in that perspective, they're going to be willing to go out there. I mean, of course, it's still uncomfortable because I still feel uncomfortable, showing myself off or just like, talking about the things I've accomplished. But I realize that if I don't do that, then I'm just not being visible. And,
Mm.
I want to help Asian women just break out of their shell. Right. And it has to start with myself. Right. If I'm not there doing it,
Mm.
no one else is going to do it. And sometimes we have to lead by example so they can see what's possible. And like I mentioned, it's uncomfortable sometimes. Like sometimes I don't like being on video. Sometimes I don't want to post something on Facebook or on Instagram, but I do it because it's something bigger than myself, right?
Mm.
If, like I mentioned, if it can help one person, then I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Absolutely. And it's great you talk about the comfort zone. It's one of the biggest things that stops so many people. Just we don't like to do things that are uncomfortable. We like to, even things we're not crazy about, but if we're comfortable doing it, we'll keep doing it. That's why people stay in jobs they hate, but they've been there 10 years. They know what to expect. Our brain hates uncertainty. So it likes what it knows to expect, even if it doesn't make us happy. That's why some people stay with the same boyfriend or girlfriend for years, complain about them all the time, but they'll never leave them because they know what to expect. But when you get out of the comfort zone, you try what's new. No matter what it is, eventually it gets comfortable. Like if you put your hands together, all right. Now if you switch the thumbs, the first few seconds it's going to feel uncomfortable, but after about 10, 15 seconds, you'll get comfortable. So with anything new, it's going to be uncomfortable. But if you keep doing it again and again, you will get comfortable with it. And like you said, if you don't do it, what other Asian woman will do it? So if you do it, other women will do it. And as a result, because of all the shows you've done over the years, a lot of other Asian women have taken that step to break out, to do good things, get their stuff out, get their material, get their videos, get their books out. And it's all because one or two people did it. Are you familiar with that video? There's this guy and it shows someone has to take the first step. So it shows some guy dancing. No one wants to dance. So he's dancing for about a half a minute. And then finally someone else dances with him. So there's a second person who follows. And then after a couple more follow, and then everyone gets in. But it took one or two people to do it. One person had to get it started. And then the first follower decided, I'm going to follow him. And then people see two people, then they say, okay, we'll join. And then more people. But someone has to get it started because that first guy started, another guy joined him. And then the whole crew of people eventually started. You see like 100 people dancing. But if that one guy didn't start dancing, nothing would have happened. So it's a great video you can watch on YouTube. So if you don't think you can make a difference, Sheena is a perfect example. She realized there was no Asian women really doing, or very few of them. So she got out of her comfort zone, started doing this podcast. She's interviewed over 700 women, and now she has a new book out. She has a summit coming out, all because she got out of her comfort zone. So you never know, and it may take a little while. Don't expect it to happen overnight.
Yeah.
But if you're patient, you never know what great things can happen. And I'm sure you've built many awesome relationships with these women. And I'm sure other very successful people have probably reached out to you saying, hey, I've been watching your podcast the last couple of years. I'd like to talk more to you about these kind of things, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we even have nonprofit organizations that, we contacted and understand what we're doing and want to collaborate with us, right? And that's huge because before I didn't think anyone would come up to me or anyone would listen to me, right? Like, who am I? I'm just one person. But all it starts is one, right? Like I started this podcast like with nothing, right? The first people I interviewed were my group of friends, right? And slowly I had the courage to just start cold emailing a lot of people. I've interviewed over 800 women from different cultures, right?
Wow.
But imagine how much rejection I got, going after that many women. So I just want to share that because, a lot of people like to glamorize entrepreneurship, and really it sometimes it's not glamorous at all. Sometimes it sucks, right? Sometimes, yeah, you get to work all any hours you want, but sometimes you might have to work 24, 48 hours straight, right? You get ton of rejection. There's days where you want to quit or ugly cry or throw your laptop against the wall. There's days where you have to sacrifice some stuff, right, to get something done. Even creating this book was not a walk in the park, right? I mean, I got a lot of rejection as well because I think, some people weren't just ready to do it, right? And that's fine. But I knew that this book had to be done because there's nothing else out there. And it's better, showcasing 18, sorry, my fingers, like I'm trying to do the zoom action, it's not working, but it's better to have 16 18 Asian women on a book versus just you going out there, right? Like for me, that's super powerful. Like I can look at that and be like, wow. Like it was like when I watched Crazy Rich Asians for the first time, it was just super emotional in a good way, because I was like, finally there's something out there that's for our Asian community. And so I'm always doing my best to elevate it or speak up, because I realize that not everyone's ready to speak up or are too afraid, or are afraid for their life, because this is real life, right? Like some people just can't speak up because they might be a target, or some people can't speak up because they're not ready for that burden and responsibility, and it's a lot, right? Or some people just can't connect with their own community. That's normal, right? Like that's okay. And then we have to realize, like, that's okay. As long as you're out there doing it, they're going to see it and they're going to realize, like, okay, I've been seeing her like sharing all this stuff, tweeting, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And so I realized, like, you just lead by example and people will follow.
No, absolutely. Yeah, just got to lead by example. People follow. And you talked about the fact that the entrepreneur life is not always a glamorous life. A lot of people only see the nice things that we have going on in our life, but they don't see very often the struggle that went on behind the scenes for, frankly, many years for many of us. It
Yeah.
wasn't like I said, one day I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and the next day I'm making all this money and traveling all. It took a lot of time, a lot of feedback of how to improve things, a lot, like you said, a lot of rejection. People don't realize a lot of people say no to you, but you have to fight through that rejection. And a lot of people give up too soon. And it's like in that book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, that guy gave up 3 feet from the goal. And if he had just not given up, continue, he would have found gold if he just got another 3 feet. But he sold to another guy who got millions of dollars in gold. So that's one thing that stops a lot. But you persevered, and because you persevered, you've had all this success going on. I just want to share a story about one of my mentors, because he dealt with a lot of rejection. Jack Canfield. He and his partner Mark Victor Hansen wrote a book called Chicken Soup for the Soul
Oh
in the
yeah.
1990s. That book got rejected by 144 publishers. Most people don't know that. They
Yeah.
just think it got accepted, but pretty much everyone rejected it. But they never gave up. They kept saying next, 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 and then eventually found the guy who would publish the book, and it became the third best-selling book of the 1990s. It inspired a whole group of series of books, Chicken Soup for the Mother Soul, for the Christian Soul, for the Gardener Soul.
Yeah.
There were like dozens of books, and now the whole series has sold about 500 million books worldwide, all because those guys, they didn't let rejection stop. They dealt with a lot of rejection, but they didn't give up until they got a yes. And because of that, those two guys made millions of dollars, and they've gone on to much other great success. But if they had let rejection stop them, most people would never have heard of these two guys. But this book became phenomenally successful. So I want people to learn, like, you're going to deal with rejection. It's unfortunately, it's a part of life. But if you can overcome and realize that if I keep pushing, I will get to where I want, someone will say yes, great things can happen. And that happens so often. That's happened to you because you didn't let rejection stop you. You have the successful podcast. You have this book that just came out. You have a summit coming out. You've been a successful coach and consultant. You've dealt with many different groups, nonprofits that reach out to you, all because you don't let rejection stop you. And I think especially in the Asian community, like you said, a lot of people encourage not to really speak up and hold a lot of things in, and especially among the women. So I think they see this book with 16 Asian women talking about their life experience. I think it's going to encourage a lot of Asian women that it's okay to speak and they can inspire people. So, and you have, I just love, what you just said, that people need to realize there's going to be tough times, but if you don't give up, there's going to be some great times ahead as well. But you need to realize, be aware that both are going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And you see a lot of stories where like you see a person, they're an overnight success, but they're not an overnight success. They've been putting the work in, day out for years to get to that overnight success status. And, there's a lot of stars that talk about that, right? Lizzo's one great example, right? She just blew up out of nowhere, but she had a tweet saying how she used to sing for beer because that's all they could afford at the time, right? Like she was performing wherever she could perform, she would just do it. And if people just realize what she went through to get to where she is today, people realize it wasn't overnight. It was a long battle and she finally made it, right? And she's still continuously working at it, putting herself out there, sharing who she is, being her authentic self, because it's not always easy, right? Like, especially when you're like a public figure, like there's always criticism, there's haters, there's,
Hmm.
keyboard warriors. And so it does take a lot of mental work to get through that, right? To work on it and to build that strength.
No, absolutely. And you realize the more successful you are, the more you're going to have haters. And I like the acronym for haters, having anger toward everyone reaching success. And the more successful you are, the more haters you're going to have. It just comes with the territory. Like Tony Robbins or Les Brown, those guys know, or Oprah, those people know they're going to have a lot of haters. They're going to say they're scam artists, they're that, and they don't let it bother them because they know it comes with the territory. They know the vast majority of people love what they do and they support on what they do and they get a lot of value out of all the things that they do. So that's something also to keep in mind because I think some people are afraid that if they do get a little more successful, they're going to get a lot of criticism. That's just part of the process. You'd be surprised of the things that are said to you. Sometimes they don't say it to you. They'll say it to other people, and then word gets back to you. I know my ex-girlfriend, we used to have lunch every week. I post on Facebook, and they complained to one of my mentors, Victor's getting arrogant. He's always eating. What? We're having fun having lunch. I was like, well, yeah, but you'd be surprised at what bothers certain people. But you know what? So some of those people are really secret fans, and there's a certain jealousy, maybe because they didn't. There could be a whole bunch of reasons why. Maybe because they're jealous of the fact they didn't take all the sips you did. It's not easy to do what you did. You had to do a lot of work. You had to get out of your comfort zone. You had to deal with a lot of
Oh yeah.
obstacles and rejections, and it's not easy. No, a lot of people cannot handle it. And because when you try to bring yourself to an upper level, some people who would love to be at that same level as you have one or two choices. They can either rise to the level you are or keep you down. And for some people, it's easy to try to keep you down. So that's why even sometimes people you would think that would support you don't always support you. And I'm sure you've probably
Oh
dealt with
yeah.
some people that surprise you saying, why aren't they supporting? They're my friends. And you find out that that's probably one of the reasons why.
Yeah. And especially as Asian women, we have so much to unprogram, right? The cultural upbringing that we have from society and families, that's been passed on from generation to generation to
Mhm.
generation to generation. Like that's not easy to unprogram because we've been taught a certain way of living, a certain way as how Asian women are supposed to act or,
Mhm.
live that one way versus like stepping out of that, right? Because if we step out of that, we're considered shameful and crazy and not obedient, right? The one thing I want is to really take away that stereotype of all Asian women are quiet, submissive, and obedient, or treated as sex objects, because we're way more than that. And the podcast and the book are proof that we can be strong, powerful Asian women who can go out there and do
Mhm.
amazing things. Like even yesterday, first film director or first women of color to win a Golden Globe for Best Director is an Asian woman. Like,
Wow.
but it took this long for someone to,
Mhm.
a woman of this position to win it, right? But it's better than not having it, right? Her winning
Mhm.
can open so many doors for other women out there, right? Because I always say a win for one woman is a win for all women.
No, absolutely. And like you said, they see one woman win, Asian woman winning that award. It's saying, hey, a lot of women say maybe I can do that too. So you may have more directors, more producers doing that because saying, wow, we can do it now. Because yeah, like you said, the more examples you see, the more inspires a lot of women. So like I said, I think that book's going to inspire a lot of women.
Thank
I think,
you.
yeah, yeah, and I know your podcast inspire a lot of women, and your example, I think, is going to keep inspiring people. So just keep doing the great work, and I know you're on Clubhouse a lot
Yeah.
talking about inspiring. No, I'm on Clubhouse a lot too. It's a very addictive platform.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great platform because you can really meet a lot of great people on that. I think it gives you opportunities you can't find on other social media. So yeah, and that's another lesson. Uh, Go where you can inspire people. So whatever it is, Clubhouse is one. Me and Sheena use. Other people use whatever, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever works for you. YouTube, wherever you can get your message out that can inspire people. You have to figure out for yourself what is the best way. But the thing is, don't hold your message in, because you just don't know, as Sheena was talking about, you don't know whose life you can change with your story, with your inspiration. And if you share the message, like, I struggled through this for years, but because I overcame it, I didn't let the obstacles stop me. I reject the rejection. I overcame the rejections, and along the way, all these great things happen because I persevered. And if I can do it, you can do it. So I think that's a message I think you can give to a lot of women, and a lot of Asian women as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think people will resonate with you when when they
Hmm.
realize they've gone through hardships and
Hmm.
be able to overcome it, because we all go through hardships. It's a part of life. Life isn't always pretty. It's
Hmm.
sometimes ugly. Sometimes it's like a roller coaster. Sometimes it'll go up, sometimes it'll go down, or all around or upside down, but that's life. And we
Yeah.
have to learn to live with that, right? Like in a way where we can still go out there, keep pushing forward, keep putting ourselves back up when times are tough.
Yeah, and that sounds a lot like the entrepreneurial journey as
Yeah.
well. They have a lot of ups and downs. Some days it's incredible. Other days are like, oh, do I really want to continue doing this?
Yeah.
So for those in the audience who think every day is great for an entrepreneur, yeah, I could tell you, both of us could tell you, there are some days we wonder, should I really continue? But then there are other days where everything is so great, and we say to ourselves, wow, this is why I do it. When you get a call or an email or a text message from someone saying, that one post you did, that one video you shared, it inspired me. I was about to give up, but because of that video, I'm going to continue. So I want to just thank you so much. That little message, you have no idea how much it makes people feel better. So if someone is inspired you, let them know, because everyone likes to know that they made a difference in other people's lives. So that's one of the reasons why we continue our journey, because we want to inspire people. We want to help people. We want to make a difference in people's lives. And so if someone's really made a difference in your life, don't be afraid to call them or text them or message them, because it's going to make them feel good. Because what people love to contribute. Everyone feels good when they know they've inspired people and made a difference in others' lives.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So do you have any, before we conclude, do you have any other last minute things you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, for sure. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, all the major podcast directories. And you can listen to Asian women's stories of how they're able to forge their own path and thrive and overcome their own self-confidence issues to be the confident women that they are today. Or you can go to the website, thetaoofselfconfidence.com. And you can also pick up a copy of Asian Women Who Boss Up. You can pick up the ebook on Amazon.com, or you can pre-order a signed copy of my book on my website, SheenaYapChan.com, or thetaoofselfconfidence.com. And this is a book with a cause, because part of the proceeds will be donated to nonprofit organizations in Canada and the US that are combating anti-Asian racism. Like I mentioned,
Mhm.
anti-Asian hate or Asian hate crimes have been on a huge rise in
Mhm.
Canada and America, and nobody's talking about it. And so this is my part. I really want to help them be able to help others who are in need, right? Especially our elderly community. When you hear stories of 80-year-old women being beaten up in trolleys, or men's faces getting slashed or being stabbed, it's hard to talk about this. Trust me, there's
Yeah.
days where I want to cry, but it's
Yeah.
needed. So part of the proceeds will go to fightcovidracism.ca, which is an organization in Canada, and in the US, stop aapihate.org. So that's one in the US. So please pick up a copy of the book, just to at least help out, right? Just help out, spread the word, and be part of this movement where we can end racism.
That's wonderful. And that's great. You're sharing some of the proceeds to help people dealing with racism, prejudice because of anti-Asian bias because of COVID. So I think that's wonderful. So you're supporting a good cause if you pick up the book. And one last thing, well, and how could people? I know you mentioned it. Can you mention again? How can people find out more about your summit at the end of next month?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Check out SheenaYapChan.com. There, if you go to the main page, there's a link there that you can register for free, and anyone's invited. Even men are invited. If you want to learn from women or just connect, or you never know, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
open to everybody. It's free to register, and we're just super excited because you don't see a lot of virtual summits that highlight Asian women, right? That's mostly Asian women. So we're really super excited about this. And if you want to connect with me, you can also check out my website, or if you Google Sheena Yap Chan, I'm like the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet. So it's really easy to find me.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, Sheena, for being on the show and for sharing all your wisdom and your value, and for sharing about your podcast and your book and your summit. So I highly encourage you, so that you want to learn more about her, and especially in the women audience who want to be inspired to really build up their self-confidence and really achieve more with their lives, check out Sheena's podcast, check out the book that just came out. I think you get a lot of value, and you'll be supporting a good cause with the book. So again, thanks so much, Sheena. I really appreciate your taking time to be with us and sharing all your wisdom with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had lots of fun.
Great to hear. Have yourself a wonderful day. Take
You
care.
too. Stay safe.
You too. Bye bye.